So welcome to this panel discussion. We have four prominent airport executives on stage. We have Harry Barrett, who is the Executive Director of Aviation at Palm Springs International Airport. He's been active in the industry for about 20 years, not only on commercial aviation, but also, I will call it, military aviation as well. So that's a very nice combination in terms of experience. But besides that, he's been responsible of airports, managing airports, being in charge of operations in Washington States or airports across the Washington States, basically. The second person on the panel is Mr. Szabo, who is the Chief Passenger Service Officer of Budapest Airport, an airport which, if I'm not mistaken, has changed hands, meaning from an ownership standpoint. So that might eventually be an interesting angle when it comes down to the use of technology or interpreting basically what are the novelties in terms of passenger experience and the like. He's been active in the industry for about 18 years and mostly with basically Budapest. So I guess you've seen that airport developed over the years, yeah, from being a state-owned enterprise down to what it is now, an asset with tremendous value. Marcelo, basically very experienced in aviation, not only with experience in Angola now, Canada, but also Brazil, responsible of IT, technology, but also operational processes such as ORAT and the like. I guess what is relevant about your participation is not only your knowledge and what you're going to answer to my questions, but also Angola itself, which is a market or a country making the headlines, and especially the brand new airport. Some people are saying things about it. Some of these things are very positive. So maybe you can also illustrate to us what the market is all about and what that airport is all about. And John Hudson, Chief Technology Officer of Manchester Airport Group. Very active group, not only in the UK, but also internationally. And thank you for joining us. So I will go with question number one. So basically, we're going to try to combine a couple of things that are happening in the industry. One is the passenger behavior itself is changing, yeah? We have eventually passengers which are looking, or eventually they have different needs. On the other side, we have technology coming in. Marcelo, we were just talking about it, new technology being available and so on and so forth. But in terms of passenger and expectations of the new generation of passengers, maybe, Harry, you can tell us much more about Palm Springs and how do you approach the eventual change in requirements, in trends and behaviors of your passengers?
Sure. So Palm Springs traditionally has not been a busy airport. It hasn't been very innovative. During the pandemic, like everybody else, we were very, very slow, and we didn't expect to recover quickly, but we actually rebounded fairly quickly at about a clip of 12 to 14% year over year. So we pushed 3.5 million passengers through the facility now. That's expected to grow this year to close to 4 million passengers through the facility. And with that came the need to identify change, identify new ways of doing things. And it actually started with our outbound baggage handling system. So we had designed and built that project while we were in the pandemic. We turned it on after it was completed, and day one, it didn't work. It didn't meet the capacity needs of the airport. So we had to go and redesign and revisit that system. And while we were doing that, we tried to look at it from the customer perspective on how could we capitalize on not only more efficiency, but more customer experience. So we looked at what do passengers do today. We worked with Alaska Airlines. At the time, they were looking at how to do bag check-in from your home, get remote bag tags. So we worked with them on that process. We were able to implement that with Alaska Airlines while we were redesigning our system. And that went very, very well. So as we started to engage in the process of replacing that system, we started to look at other methods and means of getting bags through the facility more efficiently, which involved AI, which involved remote bag storage, so that we didn't have the capacity issues that we were feeling in that period of time.
So eventually technology will play a more prominent role in your passenger experience strategy, or you're trying to surround or base your passengers service strategies, so to say, or offerings in favor of passengers on technology, or technology will be important going forward.
That's exactly right. And we're actually far behind some other airports in that regard, but developing an innovation strategy. And in some ways, it's actually better because we have a clean slate to work with. So we're able to test things and pilot things and see how they work for the airport.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Istvan, when it comes down to Budapest, I mean, that's an airport which has developed impressively from a passenger standpoint, but also it is an asset which is making the headlines due to different reasons, mostly financials, I will say so. But now that there is a new ownership in place, how do you combine that? What are the requirements of that new ownership compared to the former management? And also, how is the new technology, how relevant new technologies, whichever the type, is playing a role in your new passenger experience strategy, if any, of course?
Sure, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Yeah, as you correctly said, we've been through a period of, in the past 1 year, where it was a lot about the transaction that happened at the end of the day then in June. So we are now part of the Vinci network, which is very good news for us, very good news for the team in terms of seeing and working together with a shareholder who has immense experience in airport operations with over 70 airports. And this is the knowledge and this is the know-how that we can all benefit from. So when I discussed a lot with my team about innovation, about new technologies, I mean, it's a complete new horizon for us now. We can learn from each other. We can learn within the network about the technologies that other airports are using. So talking about Vinci, maybe it's important to mention that we have, or they have, for example, 3 innovation centers within Europe, their respective airports at Gatwick, Lisbon, and Lyon Airport. And this is what it's very impressive for us, because we, as, let's say, a medium-sized airport, if I look back over the years, we have been developing very well in terms of passenger numbers. Also, after the crash during COVID, we've been able to recover quite well. So we will reach this year more than 17 million passengers, which is more than before COVID, so before 2019. So the growth rate after COVID is really, really good. So that means also that we have to deal with the capacity constraints that we have. And the technology is there. I'm sure that they will help us, and we started to implement. So if I can talk maybe a little bit about security, which is part of my role as well. So we don't have the CT scanners yet in passenger screening, but we do, for example, trial different type of supporting systems for the screener, like APITs, namely. We did a trial with several companies where we could see that it's not only supporting the screener to make the right decision if it comes to prohibited items, but it's also better for the passenger because everything is getting quicker and it's being expedited. So we are looking into different options when it comes to passenger experience. We have opened during COVID because there we had time to think, we had time to prepare ourselves for the traffic. So we have opened, for example, in downtown Budapest location, we call it Airport Hub, where passengers can go there and can tag their bags. And now as a second step, we are introducing the next step where passengers are able to leave the bags there and then they will see their bags at the destination. So there are a couple of initiatives, but again, I'm so happy to meet also yesterday colleagues from 1C and to discuss with them all the initiatives in terms of innovation. So we're looking forward to work with them.
Yeah, it's very exciting, I guess, for you and the group of Budapest having access to Vinci's technology, or at least expertise in developing airports, preparing airports for, I will say, new trends, not only in technology, but across the board as well. Very exciting times, I guess, for you going forward with the new management and hopefully new challenges as well. John, being responsible of technology at a multi-airport group, What is that like? You need to look after not only one asset, I guess you need to look after what technology is about across a number of airports. What type of technology do you think is going to come in and disrupt the way we manage airports, the way we operate airports, the way we provide services to passengers? What are you looking at in terms of technology at your group?
So I think that for me, knowledge is the key to this and understanding how things work. It's really easy to go out and get a new piece of technology and someone can sell you on something that says, this is fantastic, this is the best thing for baggage, this is the best thing for passenger experience. But unless the technology team truly understand how the end-to-end process works, you're never going to be able to build a solution that works for it. I think a lot of airports are looking at AOPs right now and understanding that. For us, when we talk about, it's not one piece of technology, it is looking at that, and I mentioned it earlier, the very bold claim in one of my talks that we want to create the world's most intelligent airports. We're not taking an operational approach to this, we're not taking a revenue approach, it's a customer-centric approach. So truly understanding your customers and what they want, going out to your customers to find out their needs, and then using the technology there, and putting the technology in place that's going to be right for them. So I don't think you can go out and get autonomous vehicles on your airfields, and it might kind of save you so much money on fees for people who are going to drive these vehicles around. But what's actually going to make a real difference for me is understanding what the customers want and making that customer experience better. I think if we go back to, if you look at like the air travel in the 50s, where you could have, it was seamless, it was frictionless. You could walk up to the airport 20 minutes before your flight and get on it. I mean, clearly I'm not old enough to know that, but for me, can we get back to that place with technology? Yes, you could do biometrics that recognize you as you're walking up to a bag drop. Hi John, welcome to Manchester Airport, please drop your bag here, and you just walk off. You walk up to the boarding card readers, they're open, they scan your biometrics, you can walk straight through. You could do this at the whole point and make it really frictionless. But then airports essentially become a glorified bus station. People won't show up, we don't have the revenue. So the cost of this technology goes up, but the revenue you make by making it so frictionless goes down. So for me, we need to make airports a place where people want to come. Because right now, the only reason people come to an airport is to leave an airport. So you need to make it kind of experiential. You need to give them something to come to. So understanding, kind of places for kids to go and play. Having a soft play area, it's not very technological, I get that, but having things like that, having kind of VR arcades for kids to play in, having places that when you go into a lounge actually has something that's rather than just I'm paying to get an extra seat and a quicker line in the coffee, it's actually something a lot more experiential. And for me, that's going out, finding out what customers want.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I guess as you were saying, I mean, there is technology that we can buy, indeed, but not all that technology could be implementable at the assets we are in possession of. I guess, of course, some technology are very good for airports of X or Y sizes, but they don't fit all the needs that we have, indeed. And something very important is that we should not eventually just buy technology for the sake of buying technology, but whether there is an airport with a P&L with sufficient robustness to pay for that technology, which is eventually hindering to a certain extent the implementation of technology in the industry going forward, because it's not about having things that make things eventually seamless, but who can pay for that? Is the airport in a position to afford it? I guess that's 2 points I just wanted to highlight from your intervention. Thank you very much. I guess, Marcelo, you have, I want to ask you about 2 things. One is about Angola, because I guess, at least to me, this is one of the very few occasions where we get to hear about the country, yet there is a lot happening down there with changes at the civil aviation level, new airports, and all that. So maybe if you can just give us an idea of what is happening in Angola in terms of aviation airport. And secondly, since now you are about to open a brand new airport for Luanda, the capital city, what is so innovative about the airport, the new airport, in terms of technology, and what type of technology we can see there that eventually is not available at competing airports in the region? Please. Oh, he needs a...
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, in fact, I've spent 11 years at Toronto Pearson Airport, and then I moved back to Brazil and spent 12 years at Viracopos, São Paulo Airport, one of the largest cargo and passenger airports there in Brazil. And now I'm experiencing this in Luanda, Angola, where the Angolan government has developed and has built a brand new state-of-the-art airport over there. And this new airport is called Antonio Agostinho Neto, the name of the first president of Angola. And it's really vying for the topmost position in Africa. As I said, it's brand new, it's beautiful, has a wonderful garden, as beautiful as the one that you find in Singapore, for example. 15 million passenger capacity, 31 passenger bridges. I mean, it's a wonderful piece of infrastructure. And Africa needs it, deserves it. First, because South Africa has suffered a lot during the pandemic and never recovered. The airport over there never recovered. We have Ethiopian airport in the capital, but it has a huge traffic. It's the connecting point in Africa for all the continents, but the problem is they don't have the infrastructure. So Angola has decided to go for this route and build the infrastructure that is needed in a very favored geographic location that can connect the whole continent and create the conditions for it to be the preferred connecting hub in Africa regarding to other continents. So again, the airport was built by a Chinese company, the same company that built several other airports in China with 45 million passengers per year in the province of Chengdu. Another huge airport in the province of Xi'an with 60 million passengers per year. They copied the brand new state-of-the-art technology, bringing it to there. So it's a very, very modern airport. And I do believe that will set Angola for being the next hub for the continent. Well, but regardless of the technology that has been implemented there, and there is a lot, one thing that we can never forget is that technology has to be an enabler. And also the definition of technology varies a lot. I mean, sometimes a very basic application can make a huge difference in operational efficiency, or even the experience, the passenger experience, as John just highlighted here, an AI application that can converse better with the client and providing him or her with what he or she needs is the best thing. So later on, I'll hope to be able to explore this a little bit more in terms of what you mean by different levels of applications of technology and how it can improve efficiency, the degree of transformation of the company, and the passenger experience. So I'll come back to this point later on. Thank you.
Excellent. I guess it is very refreshing to see that there is a new player in the African aviation marketplace, a new airport. And I hope that you will be able to fill in the airport with passengers. That will be a big of a challenge, but I guess it will be nice to see your airport performing in the way you guys have designed it for. Thank you. I guess, Harry, you were mentioning that there is certain novelty in your operations, with implementation of a brand new baggage handling system and so on and so forth. But I would like to know which other technologies you're looking at for improving your processes or your passenger experience at your airport, besides the BHS, which is basically, whether it's more logistics, I will say, so it's much more into operations. But what else, which other technologies are helping you eventually create a wow factor or increase your recognition in terms of ASQ and other ranking sort of institutes in the industry?
So you said it just perfectly, and actually John brings up a really good point about the customer experience, because Palm Springs is very focused on the customer experience. It's a very boutique airport, and it caters to people with more ability to go places. that are more high-end. So we really focus on trying to make that experience great for every traveler, but certainly for the expectation of the region, which is Palm Springs. In terms of passenger experience, we're really looking campus-wide at that. Beyond the baggage handling system, we're looking at the entire process from the time a passenger leaves their door to the time they make it to their destination. And the idea is that frictionless travel experience where someone knows what to expect before they even leave their home. And their journey is essentially planned for them before they even leave the door in the morning. That can be done in a number of ways. We're actually partnering with a development company, a software development company in Palm Springs that's developing an app to manage that travel experience. And the passenger, from their perspective, can do everything from not only book their travel in terms of their final mile experience or their airline ticket, but also what happens in their destination, whether that be hotel reservations or whether that be dinner, a table for dinner, or theater tickets. So we're just starting to explore those type of things now. But on the airport, a lot more is happening. So 2 months ago, we just rolled out what's called Stay and Play, which allows passengers and their families to go post-security without having a ticket to enter the plane. And the idea is that families can not only escort their loved ones to their gate, put them on the plane, wave goodbye, but then they can spend time in the airport and actually have dinner if they like, or just enjoy the airport experience. So that's one thing that we rolled out a couple of months ago. Another is a parking revenue system which really leverages Apple Pay and other technologies that the customer doesn't have to worry about that ticketing experience or interacting with a person if they choose not to do so. They can do that all on their phone. So there are a number of ways we're doing that.
Excellent. I just have a question about allowing passengers, individuals, not passengers going airside. How much time they can stay airside?
They can stay all day if they like.
Okay.
So they are, what happens is they register on an application. They're ticketed just like a passenger, but it's not for an airline. So they're vetted through our TSA and our customs, and then they're allowed to go post-security and enjoy the airport.
Excellent. Very good. I guess this is a significant revenue source for you. At least it's contributing into the need of generating more revenue.
It is.
For compensating or paying or shouldering the development and the changes you are trying to implement at Palm Springs Airport. Budapest. There are airports trying to open the doors to startups, companies which to a certain extent are developing certain novelty that could eventually be brought into our houses, airports. And I guess we have a display of those here. How are you working with startups? How are you working with these dynamic enterprises these days? If you can elaborate on that and how relevant they are in eventually you selecting technologies and your strategy in committing or eventually having partnerships with new service providers.
Yes, before answering the question, just maybe just to connect on what the colleagues have said. So I think we have to take also into consideration at the end of the day when we are talking about smoothless passenger experience that at the end of the day it's an airport. It's quite the whole flying thing. It's going to be always something special and always a bit more dangerous than maybe other means of transport. So the whole security, if I'm talking about security, the whole security network around the house, around the terminal, there always, I think, unfortunately, there always will be some stops along the way where the passenger has to stop and has to undergo certain processes, be it check-in, be it security. So there are points in the flow where, of course, you can make it easier. You can let the passenger forget the inconvenience. You do already online check-in, you do self-pack drop, you have a lot of automation, you are not going to the check-in anymore, you go immediately to the security. You have the biometrics. We also started to plan, for example, with a major German airline to do the biometrics trial. The doors to security will be open, but then you have to undergo the process. So what I'm saying is I think we can never expect that the whole flying environment will be just like breeze through, like you mentioned, John, let's say 20 minutes before departure, because it's simply not the direction that the world is heading to. If there is someone here from the organizers, it's not a criticism, but if you look how you get into this conference, which is not an airport, you have to scan, you have to present your badge. They will scan your badge each and every time you enter the hall. So there are infrastructures which require certain processes. To get back to your original question about the startup, so we are not in the position to deal very deeply with the startups. So the way we bring in new technologies is looking at the problem that we have, trying to find a solution, trying to find companies which developed already some sort of a solution, which then can be tailor-made to solve our issues. I had always the vision and the dream to involve startups in a way like, for example, Munich is doing with the Innovation Lab, or Rome is doing with the Innovation Lab. We, unfortunately, currently we are not there yet. I think what Munich is doing, for example, or Rome again, I think it's fantastic that they innovate in a way that they are embracing the startups, bringing into their ecosystem, giving them the possibilities to develop and then to showcase what they have produced or developed. So I hope that we will also get there. Currently, we are looking at almost ready solutions, let's say.
Excellent. And just to build on that, since you were mentioning about Munich Airport's plans in that regard, I guess what we have is the lab campus, or the so-called lab campus. So this is basically a space wherein not only this type of companies, startups can come and seed and develop and showcase what they do, but there is an academic or educational element attached to it, which is that we have, and I guess this was made public last week or a few days ago, we have the Technical University of Munich moving in with one of their college or I say schools, a school related to aviation engineering and so on and so forth. So in addition to having all these colleagues innovating or eventually developing new products, we're going to have about, if I'm not mistaken, 6,000 students in the same place. What is that going to generate? It's still a question mark, but I guess the combination of these two natures, so to say, may eventually generate very interesting results. But now and thank you for your comment on that. Back to Manchester Airport Group. I mean, are you investing in technology? If I'm not mistaken, I bumped into a company here, which is of your ownership.
Yeah, so we've got a
If you
Cavu.
can just elaborate on that, because at some point, unless mistaken, we were used to see basically Manchester Airport Group managing assets overseas and all that, which is much more into management consulting type of services, whereas now I guess you're going much more into a technology route to internationalize your services. Is that it? Is that a good interpretation of what is happening?
Yeah, so Cavu, who got one of the booths over there, part of the M.A.G group, and essentially they're our e-commerce arm. So they manage all of, at Manchester, the parking allocations and the sales of parking. They do fast track, they do lounge access, and actually own and run and manage the lounges there, as well as for airports across the globe, from Australia to the US to the UK. So from that sense, we want to run our airport, and the technology team under myself, we do a lot of the integrations. We've got, so we'll integrate with them, but the sales part of it is a separate side of it. So, excuse me. So we can focus on running our airports and the operation of our airports, while Cavu can do parts of that for us, but then also go off and sell it. So from a revenue perspective for the group, it's fantastic. But what it means is that we don't have to focus on trying to do other people's jobs at other airports. We can actually run ours, because I think I said this earlier in my talk, that every airport is different. We've got 3 airports in the group, and they're all 3 of them are vastly different from each other. In terms of investing in technology, I think, and touching on what you said about startups, my head of engineering, who's over there, talks about Manchester Airport Group as the oldest startup in the UK. And if you look at some of the technologies that we had one of the first automated baggage systems in the world. We've still got the oldest multi-story car park in Europe. So we've always been innovating. We've kind of dropped off a little bit throughout COVID, because as everyone did. But now we're really heavily investing in trying to create real intelligent airports, using artificial intelligence for things like customer interaction, to monitor plane turnaround, to do lots of different things. So we're really pushing a proof of concept. But what's really important about a proof of concept for me is that, and we haven't done it very well in the past, is that rather than it be you put something in, you test it, you get the data, you pull it out, and then decide what to do from there, a lot of people, including us, tended to just put something in, it's a half-baked version of it, and then it becomes productionized, and it's not really doing what it's meant. So for us, when we invest in the technology, it's working with partners like AWS, who are our cloud partner, working with our prototyping teams to give us the right information, the right knowledge to be able to go away and do it ourselves, working with professional services who will come in, help us get that knowledge that we need in order to do something, but then leave without there being a knowledge vacuum. So now we're moving on. We've got these proof of concepts. They work. We've pulled them out. We're looking at the data that comes from it, and then we're turning it into a full-blown project that's got the right CapEx behind it to go and do it, and we can put the right revenue and the OpEx costs against it to say, we know this is going to be successful, not putting something into the field and just letting it sit. So it's the knowledge you get out of a proof of concept that helps the technology grow, rather than just putting technology out there to see what it does.
Excellent. I mean, there seems to be a process for that, and the company you were referring to is not eventually the first and only investment you will do in technology. It sounds like there is a strategy behind it, and you really want to make it as an additional revenue source into your group, is it?
It's a possibility. I think first and foremost, we build things for ourselves. Our enterprise architecture principles are always reuse before buy before build, but build when it adds value. So if we can go out to the market and we need a COTS product that does exactly what we need it to do, we're never going to need it to change, fine, we'll buy that. There's no value in building it. But if we get something that we decide that, okay, we know what we want it to do now, and then in the future we're going to need it to grow with our airport, those kind of conversations you get from product owners that say, can it just? Once you've got a COTS product, getting to just do something else is very, very difficult, because you either need to get into the product itself and get that company who owns it and get onto their roadmap and make sure your roadmap aligns with their roadmap, or you need to try and dig into the code and edit someone else's code yourself, and it's not easy. So when you actually, if it adds value to your own roadmap to build it yourself, that's when we start to look to do it. So we can then define our own roadmap, define our own features. Now, if they turn into a product in itself where we say, actually, this is valuable to their airports, so the kiosks we've been building, there's other people have come, so our mapping partner, Atrius, people have approached them and said, where can we get these kiosks? It might be something we look at. It wasn't built for that purpose, but there's always a possibility for it.
Excellent, thank you. Marcelo, I guess you've had the chance of working on and opening a greenfield airport, meaning that you have had the chance of selecting what type of technology will be implemented, or at least you've had the chance of bringing in certain novelty in terms of technology and the likes into your operation, into the way how you commercialize your airport. What type of technologies are available there, especially related to artificial intelligence? I guess Jon was referring to it, and a use case related to aircraft turnaround time and so on and so forth. Is there any technology built around or powered by artificial intelligence, robotics, or the likes that is we can see applicable and available at the new airport in Luanda?
Okay. Yes, for example, we are developing some applications, in-house applications for bots to answer complaints for customer complaints, okay, utilizing artificial intelligence to pre-prepare the answers to the clients and making it more valuable by getting the information from other sources and being there available for the person who will respond to the complaints. So at the same time that we're bringing things like artificial intelligence over there, I guess it's a good moment to discuss a point that I would like to highlight here, is that we have to acknowledge that we need innovation, we need advanced technology, to advance the industry. Every human enterprise needs innovation and needs a new way of doing things. Otherwise, we won't advance it. But at the same time, you need to see what are your pain points. And sometimes it's something very, very simple. And I would like to quote here Plato, the Greek philosopher and mathematician. He said that necessity is the mother of invention. And that's it. Sometimes, for example, not only in Africa, in our case, for example, most of the Angolan airports, they don't even have an AODB, an airport operation database. They don't even have a resource management, a resource allocation system to optimize the allocation of gates, slots, and check-in counters and baggage belts, for example. So again, we need to look into the needs of your passengers, the needs of your organization, and then address these aspects either with something that is really disruptive or innovative, or sometimes the basics. Just, for example, in Toronto, Toronto Pearson, there was a huge confusion and complaints about pre-booking a taxi or a limo. So we just developed a very basic website where we can pre-book your limo ahead of your travel. Then, I mean, you have to look into what are the pain points, what are the needs of each of the customers for you to improve operations or to provide a better service to your client. So sometimes what is required is the basic things. Another example is talking about not only passengers but cargo, for example. At Viracopos Airport in São Paulo, we had a huge problem with storing cargo and finding the cargo afterwards. Just implementing a barcode system there and some algorithms in our warehouse management system, we're able to optimize the movement of cargo over there. And we achieved an average of 2 hours of moving cargo in and out of the warehouse, whereas the average in the country is 3 days. We achieved 2 hours of average. So yeah, we have to look into technology and see, is there a need for innovation? Yes, sometimes there is. Self-service for passengers was a great thing. Without the innovation that we applied to the industry, we wouldn't be able to process so many passengers much more comfortable than before and avoiding so many those long queues. At the same time, sometimes a very basic website or a basic barcode system can improve the solutions.
Thank you. I still have one question, but I guess we have about 10-15 minutes to go. And since we have you managing airports in Africa, a big hub, a brand new hub, John being responsible for an airport group, Mr. Szabo managing one of the best assets in Europe, and of course Harry being responsible of a unique boutique airport in the US. Maybe there is some questions from the audience. If there is any appetite for a question, or eventually if there is any topic here down to about what have been discussed so far, passenger experience, the use of technology into that, or operations, and so on and so forth. Please go ahead.
Hey there. Ganesh, Global Dots System Integrator and Innovation Provider to Airports and Technologies. We had the recent CrowdStrike outage, which hit airports very hard, and we know why that is, because there's Windows machines in there when they probably shouldn't be there, and we know why that's there, because you can't have any downtime. But any response to, like, that's a nightmare situation that keeps you awake at night. What keeps you awake at night if it's not a security hacker or a, you know, what's the main thing that keeps you awake? Is it bills? Is it terrorist attacks? Or is it system outages?
For me, it's self-inflicted problems. It's creating applications or services or integrations that are not as resilient as they should be. It's that creating things where we look at it and say that, well, there's a few risks for that, we accept the risks, and it's all well and good until something goes down, and it's really easy to say, well, we put it on the risk register and everyone accepted it. But I think, for me, it's about looking at what we're building and looking at it from a passenger perspective as well. Because it's really easy from a tech perspective to say, well, if it goes down, we'll be back up within 30 minutes, and it's fine, and there'll be 20 bags missed off a plane. That's not that many. But when you look from a passenger perspective, if a passenger heard me saying that and saying, well, it was only one of 20, it doesn't matter if your bag missed the plane, we've met most of them, it's not good on an individual basis. So for me, it's those kind of self-inflicted wounds where we've built something that just isn't good enough. And that's my nightmare scenario, that I could have done something about it. If it's out of my hands, if it was like the thing you spoke about, or if there's like, you see the airport shutting down in Orlando because of the storms, there's nothing you can do about that. But if I could have done something about it and I didn't, that's what I really don't like the sound of.
Can I add something? First, we never know what is going to hit us next. I mean, trying to identify all possible risks is something really, really impossible. Of course, you have to have plans, but that's what keeps me awake. Is if we look into the organization and see there is not a very solid, a very sound disaster recovery plan, or even a business continuity plan. If, for example, at Toronto Pearson, we did it marvelously. We look at every single operational process, and we developed a disaster recovery plan for this and a business continuity, either a paper form to continue the operation until the CEFs would be back up again. But if you have these, I mean, it doesn't matter what the risk is going to be. Of course, there are huge risks and more impact than others. But if you have mapped all your operational process and create this disaster recovery, and especially business continuity, because it can take 2, 3, 5 days to recover. But if you have a sound business continuity plan, even if it's manual process, additional people trained to service the clients, then you'll be successful. That's so it's not the risk, it's how we respond to the risk that keeps me awake. If you see the good stuff over there, then you feel comfortable and feel more able to respond to them. It just reminded me of a quotation from Georges Pompidou, not the quotation, but the former French president. He said that there are 3 roads to ruin, to disaster. Gambling is the quickest, sex is the most enjoyable, but technology is the most certain. So yeah, we need to make sure that we look into technology and make sure that we're ready to avoid ruin by applying these 2 very basic concepts of
this is giving an idea for a panel for eventually next year's edition.
Okay.
Talk about the impact of those in aviation. So we have a question. Thank you very much. We have a question down here, and then the gentleman at the end.
Yeah, hi, Mike Slynn from Hawk Rose. I guess my question's for John at the moment, and then Istvan as you've become part of a wider group. How much do you look to buy technology that will work across all of your airports and or transfer things that work at one airport to another? Or do you feel that you mentioned your airports are very different and unique, and I guess the relationships between your airports are relatively new. Do you find that transition difficult?
I mean, there's some technology we've got that is decades old that we're still using. So we use Chroma as our AODB. We've got a Windows version at Manchester and East Midlands and a Linux version at Stansted. We're now going out for a new AODB, and we're looking for something that can be applied to all 3 of them. We do like to keep the airports separate. One of the things we always get told is we like to sell airports. I think we've actually only sold 1. But we do like to keep the airports separate, but from a pattern-based approach, we want to make sure that if we're implementing something at Manchester, we're implementing it as close as possible in Stansted, so that theoretically, if we can use container-based systems, we can create an application in a container, release it to Manchester, release it to Stansted. We only update it in one place. So we try to do it as much as we can. And then from a config level, we then go from, that's when we differentiate between the airports. So from a base technology, yes, we'd like to have everything the same and then config on top of it, because for me, that's the best way to do it, because if we get learnings from the different airports as well. So if we implement something at Manchester and learn something about it in one way, we can then maybe apply that to East Midlands or Stansted, as long as we've got the same technology there.
Yeah, currently we are in the exciting situation and period where we are getting to know each other within the network. And what I can say right now is that it's a huge opportunity for us to learn from the other airports. As I said in the beginning, there are 3 innovation centers within the network. And if I look at the solutions that airports are implementing, since, as you also said, every airport is different. There is no such as uniform solution for everyone. But the good thing is that if we want to introduce a new technology, we can ask the colleagues on other airports and to find out how they were dealing with the problem, what are the experiences during the trial and then during the live operation, and we are going to use it. And what keeps me awake at night is the introduction of EES currently.
I just want to add something to it, because at Munich Airport, at least when it comes down to our international business, we are managing about 4 to 5 airports overseas besides Munich. And I guess it's hard to compare all the 5. Munich Airport is being built for handling a capacity of 56 million passengers, whereas what we have in Honduras, El Salvador, or eventually in continental Europe, or even in the US where we're managing Newark Terminal 1, I guess not only the scope is different, meaning in some occasions, as part of your concession contract, you're responsible for the air side and land side, or just the terminal building, but not the apron. Yes, sometimes the ground handling is part of the concession or not. The term of the concession is different as well, so it's very hard. Of course, it will be nice to just go out and buy, meaning and eventually get a better rebate and ask for better services. But in our case, my experience is that it's very hard to combine all that, because also starting from the timeline that is set for developing these assets, for thinking about new technology, bringing in new technology into the game, these timelines are not coordinated. So I guess trying to align all the stars and moons to make sure that this happens is not necessarily giving you the value so as to compensate the discounts or whatever the additional costs you may have or benefits you may have. This is our case. I don't know the other airports.
Hello, John from IBM Airlines, Aviation, all sorts of things. For Palm Springs, when you're developing an application or interaction for a passenger, how do you create that draw awareness demand for a passenger to go to your landing page or application versus the airlines? And how do you keep that relationship sort of sticky?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we try not to be first to market on things, right? So a lot of that happens in the background where we pilot test things with other airports first. We may pilot test it throughout a different community, advertise in a different community to see how that works before we roll it out as a product that works within the airport. So we'll do that via our website stream. We'll do that via social media. We actually are one of 42 airports that are part of what's called an airport consortium on transformation through the American Association of Airport Executives. And we work with those 42 airports to really kind of bounce ideas off of each other and see how that works maybe in other areas before we bring it into Palm Springs. But once there's that proof of concept, as John mentioned, that's an avenue for us to start really broadcasting that, whether that's through our partners or via our own web portals to make that happen.
Thank you. I guess this is it. We're asked to one more question. Short question. Whose question is that? Short.
Hello, my name is Human. I'm with Zitlin, Airport Leakage Detection Software and Mitigation. A question about route development. This wasn't exactly a topic that was covered so much today. Maybe it's a bit out of scope. what kind of tech and tools do you currently have in mind or envisage for the future, specifically on the airport development, business development, and route development side of the business?
So the question is much more about tools that help you predict.
In general, if you look at the route development as part of your business, every airport has a route development department, and they go to conferences, they engage with the airlines. To what extent is that an area that requires tech investment or data-driven approach from your perspective?
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, our case is that you would like to have access to data that you can make use of, yeah? But at the very end of the day, I will not say it's a gut feeling, but you build a case with that data, yeah? And then it's up to you as an airport, as an airline, and therefore as an airport, to believe that you have eventually a capacity or a market of 10,000 seats, 5,000 seats, and so on and so forth. So to my eyes, maybe the technology is much more into developing the data to an extent that you can have references and comparisons to some of the cases. Like, for instance, if I want to do, since we have just now Munich, Vietnam, or Munich, Taiwan, yeah, it will be nice to eventually have a benchmark, yeah? So all the routes from Vietnam or Taiwan into Central Europe, they perform in this fashion. But I guess at this stage, maybe the consulting firms have that available. But that's more or less the way I look into it. Of course, if you have a technology which can tell me, yes, it is 22,301 seat, then of course people will pay for it, big price. But that's how I see it. Maybe a closing remark, you, and then Harry, and then Marcelo, please.
No, I was going to say something very similar, actually. If there is a technology out there that can be predictive and tell me exactly what I need to fly, that would be great. But right now, A, we don't have the bandwidth to focus on that. We've got other issues. And B, the technology that we have, the consultants that we have, does seem to be working, at least for now. A lot of our information we get through cell phone data, particularly when it comes to leakage studies, things like that. But certainly building that big business case is key there.
Yeah. Marcelo?
I do believe that for an efficient route development group, we need only two things. One, of course, is the data. There are so data banks where we can collect information about where customers buy their tickets and where they're going to and from. And there are, I don't know, 4 or 5 big companies in the market. I don't want to advertise any of them, but Amadeus, OAG, and others that have those huge banks of data that you need to sign up for one of the SFCs for you to get this data. You need to know what's the volume of traffic that you can generate from one city to another going through your hub or your airport. That's the first thing. The second thing has nothing to do with technology at all. It's really a very small but focused and knowledgeable team of commercial and financial people. They need to know how to prepare a business case and the feasibility of the route. That's the most important thing. Of course, you need to have the passenger volumes that you can service, but then you need to prove to the airlines, put together this business case showing to them that, yes, if you have those many passengers buying tickets from, let's say, São Paulo and Rio, and they can go through your airport in Santa Catarina, for example, and from there flying to Rome, and then that's the feasibility of the route, how many kilometers, how many seats, how many fuel will be consumed, and then you can prove that you can fill an aircraft 3 times a day or 7 days a week. Sorry, three times a week or 7 times a week. So if you have this group of knowledgeable people that can put together a business case and you have the data, then it's very, very simple. There is nothing else that you need from a technology point of view.
Thank you, Marcelo. Just a final comment. We've been involved in air mobility type of project doing traffic forecast, and there is, in that very section, there is a need for a tool or something that can help you understand what is the market size for air mobility type of services and operations. Thank you very much. If there is a need for an additional question, please approach them after the session, and I hope you have a nice afternoon going forward. Thank you.